So, do you want to tell me about how you ended up in Mud Lake? What brought you here?
Moved here 4 years ago with my husband. Just wanted to be like out of the average Joe's life of living with traffic and cars and wanted peacefulness to raise a family. So we ended up moving back here where he was originally from.
Okay, so your husband is from Mud Lake, and you're
Yes, he
from
was
Nova
born and raised in Mud Lake, and I was born and raised in Nova Scotia. Yeah.
in Nova Scotia. Here since you moved.
I love it here. I love it here. I love the peacefulness, the quietness. It's just where the kids can go outside and play. You don't have to worry about like traffic and everything like that. They can enjoy their life and be kids.
What you guys were?
Started out thinking normal
So-
because you get a little bit of flood, but nothing that concerns you type of thing. And kept watching it, and then I said, okay, well it's getting kind of hot. I should bring the kids home from school early. And when they came home, my daughter walked through water to her waist.
To come into the
Come
house.
home. Yeah.
Early, you guys were already.
We were already thinking like, wow, it's getting kind of high, especially for having little kids walking home. It was get them home before it got too high or anything, but it was already high. Well,
And so
yeah,
how
it
did
was
the
like
rest-
watching out the window. You see it. Oh, okay, it's gone up this much more inches, type of thing, and you just kept watching to see where it was getting, thinking surely it's gonna just stop soon and stay there, recede, whatever. But it just kept coming up.
Was your husband? Because your husband has lived here his whole life.
Yeah, he was very concerned, very concerned. Ever since he owned the property, every spring he had took a stake and he had marked like how far the water came in. And he's owned this property for probably a good 10 years before we even lived here. And it had never gotten up nowheres near that. Nowheres near that. Scary. I pretended as if, like, for the kids' sake, that it wasn't as bad as it was, you know what I mean? Put him in the tub, put him to bed. I told my oldest when she went to bed, I said, Haley, if Mommy wakes you up in the night, don't ask questions. She said, okay then. And she's 6, so of course she could understand a little more than the littler ones. So put them to bed, and about, 10:30, 11 o'clock, my husband said, I gotta go to sleep. I can't stay up any longer. I said, okay, you go ahead, I'm staying up. And then I stayed up, and I just kept watching it, and finally it was about 6 inches below our top step on our stairs. Called my father-in-law. I was like, yeah, what do I do? So he said, you gotta wake him up. I said, I'll wait a little bit and just see. I don't want to wake the kids yet, right? So I let him sleep, and about 1 o'clock or so, I woke him up. And at this time, we had our boat tied on our patio. I mean, our house is high off the ground. We had our boat tied right on that railing right there. Honest to God, we did. We had to evacuate our huskies earlier in the day because they would have been dead if the water was right up past our backyard. They brought a boat right in out back and threw the huskies in the boat and had to take them to our father-in-law's. So, I mean, we had already had our dogs go to save them, and we were just trying to stay for as long as we could, keep the kids sleeping and not know nothing was happening. And when I dressed them and put them in that boat, dark, water freezing, ice chunks floating by. You don't know if you're going to get out there and hit something and tip over. We didn't have life jackets out yet. They weren't going in boat for the year. So that fear of not knowing if you're even going to make it across with your children. How do you think of that? Like, it's impossible, right? We got down to my father-in-law's, and we had to stay there until they could get the helicopter in to get us all. The whole time, just, you got to think your kids, right?
So got in a boat
In
from
the
your
dark,
step.
on our step with our kids and our 2 house dogs. In the dark. No life jackets, no nothing. Freezing cold water, just our snowsuits.
What was the weather like besides the water? What was the
It was rain, like rainy, snowy. It wasn't very nice weather. It was cold. It was cold. They didn't understand why are we in a boat now in the middle of the night, But I had to do it.
and made it safely to your father-in-law's?
Yeah, we had to take it really slow and just keep eyes and flashlights trying to make sure we didn't hit nothing because you don't know what was floating in the water. Around supper time, I was standing on my patio grabbing my wood as it was floating by me, trying to save some wood to get to the wood box because our winter's worth of wood was out there floating past us. Kids' toys floating away, nothing you could do. Yeah.
Was that the next day? I guess early in the morning.
Early morning hours, like just after daylight type of thing. And I took the 3 kids. I went with my mother-in-law and my niece. We got on with the same one, thank goodness. When I had to say goodbye to my husband and not know. And not know what was going to happen when I left. I wouldn't want anybody to go through that. I had to leave my house, my husband, everything I owned. And it just about broke my heart. But I couldn't keep the kids down here. I had to take them to safety. The next couple hours was absolute hell.
Where did you go?
To keep in contact. I went to the airport. And from there, I was grateful enough that I had got a room at a bed and breakfast for me and my kids, my mother-in-law, and my niece. And we stayed there and just sat there waiting, not knowing what was going on down home with my family, with my house, with any of our other family, because everybody was everywhere. Nobody really knew where everybody was unless you were like constant on your phone or anything. Just sitting there waiting to find out if they made it up okay, how the dogs all works. You know, your dogs are like your children, right? But when we heard from them, we had the sigh of relief, and we knew that they were all okay. And then it was just holding your breath to wait and see if and what you had to go home to.
You could come back to your home.
We were honestly one of the first families to come home. We waited until we knew that it was safe enough for like my father-in-law to come down and just check out the situation. My husband called and he was crying. There's no water in the house. I don't know how. Because when he left, honest to God, the helicopter was right over there landing. And when he left, it was this far from coming up and in the house. And the water kept rising. By the grace of God, nobody can figure out how it did not get in this house. We don't know how. We can't figure it out. It was up over that bank over there. So, I mean, you could imagine, how did it not get inside to this house? Only by the grace of God. And we say it was the people that we have in heaven that saved this place. My first son that's passed away, my father, my grandmother, his grandparents that have all passed away, they are the only reason we did not lose this house. I had my son's personal belongings in our shed because where our house isn't finished, we don't have all the room to store stuff. Our shed, everything that was in there was absolutely demolished. The only things I had left of my deceased son, I had to throw away. I use it as like he sacrificed his stuff to save our house. That's the only thing that makes it easier. And I pray to God that nothing like this ever has to happen again. Because nobody should have to go through this. And I mean, we were lucky we kept our house. There's people down here that didn't. And I thank God every day that we have our house. And then I pray and I feel bad for those that lost more than us.
But how has it been living here since then?
Nervous. I get nervous. I don't sleep at night. I'm up umpteen times a night. I go to the window and it's just me because I watch the water rise all night long. I look out. I don't know why. It's like it's my protective mode, I guess. I'm afraid that I'm not gonna know it's flooding and be awake to save my kids. And I just all the time looking out, wondering, is it gonna happen again? You know, are we gonna make it out this time? Is it gonna be worse than last time? Yeah, it's just, you always got that thought. You pray to God it's never gonna happen again. But how do you prepare for if it does the best that you can? And try to keep your family safe. I know this year our life jackets are kept close at hand for the children, for if we need them, at least they'll have their life jackets on. But it doesn't make it any easier putting them in a boat in the pitch dark when you get debris floating by you and ice chunks and trying to pick your way through it. And I mean, my father-in-law doesn't live very far away. Thank God it was that close, right? Because we might not have made it anywhere else if we were trying to get further. So.
I mean, it has to be a question that comes to mind with you and your husband about leaving here. Is that something you guys have talked about?
I will stay as long as I can. I refuse to leave the life that we have made. We've built this house with no mortgage. Every penny we've had, we've put to making the life we want to live. We live down here. We like living off the land the best that we can, providing for ourselves, having our children have the way of life we want. That's why I moved from Nova Scotia with the traffic and everything else. And if it comes down to it and we have to move out of Mud Lake, we will be going back to Nova Scotia. If I'm going to live with traffic and everything else, I will go back to where I can farm, because that's what I originally did, was farming. So if I can't live this way of life, I will be living that way.
And what
If
would
it's
it
just
take?
a bit of insulation and needs some stuff done on the inside like that, by all means, I'd redo it. They won't get rid of me that easy, but I can't chance, like trying to rebuild every year, because you can't afford it. So
That happened. In your mind, in your husband's mind, what is the reason that this happened?
I don't have a lot of knowledge on the history with the water flow, but I've heard talk of elders and people telling stories and this grandparent, and I understand that it was not like that before. And I mean, I know my husband had mapped with his stake for at least 10 years to see how far to know where to build a house. And within that 10 years, you've obviously had bad winters, good winters. You should have got a high flood if it was that case. I say it was no core in the dam. I know in my heart I feel it. They can say it might have been global warming, it might have been this, it might have been that, but in my heart I feel as if something should have been done differently on their behalf to help ensure that we don't have this issue. Now, never. It's not something that should be taken lightly. It could be everybody's lives they're risking, or trying to damage the way we all live. I'm glad Mud Lake has the strong community bond that it does have, because with losing so many members, the ones that are still here have to band together and keep it that much stronger and fight for our way of life, to keep our way of where we live and how we like to live it. If we wanted to be in a big town, we would be in big towns. We like our peace and quiet.